If your aquarium keeps turning green no matter what you do, I want you to hear this. It is not your fault. You are not doing something wrong. You are just missing one piece of information that the aquarium product industry would rather you never find out, because once you know it, you will never buy another bottle of algae treatment again, and your algae problem goes away and stays away. Not for a week, not until the next water change, permanently. I'm going to show you exactly what is happening in your tank, what to do about it, and how to keep it from ever coming back. Here is the thing about aquarium algae that nobody actually explains to you. Most hobbyists think algae is a chemical problem. They see the tank going green. They dose in algaecide. It clears up for a week or two, then it is back. So they buy more treatment, more chemical clarifier, more algae destroyer, and the cycle just keeps going, month after month, with money leaving their wallet every single time. The aquarium water treatment market generates over $1 billion annually from hobbyists stuck in exactly that cycle. What is actually happening is this. Your algae treatments are not failing because you are not using enough of them. They are failing because the underlying condition that allows algae to thrive has never been addressed. Specifically, something called nutrient competition. When your tank has excess dissolved nitrates and phosphates in the water column, with no organism competing to consume them faster than algae can. Algae wins every time. Treat it with chemicals and it comes back every time. Fix the nutrient competition and algae has no winning pathway. The fix costs between $2 and $5 and has been sitting on the shelf of every aquarium store in the country for decades. It is called Water Sprite. Water Sprite, scientific name, Ceratopterus phallictrodes, is a fast-growing aquatic fern found on nearly every continent. It grows naturally in flooded forests, swamps, ponds, and marshes across tropical regions of Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Americas. It is one of the most widely distributed aquatic plants on Earth. It has been available in the aquarium hobby for as long as the hobby has existed. It is the single most effective biological tool for permanent algae suppression available to a freshwater hobbyist at any budget level. A bunch of 3 to 6 stems costs between $2 and $5 at any aquarium store or online retailer. It is not a specialty product. It is not a niche plant for advanced hobbyists. You can find it at chain pet stores alongside the goldfish and the gravel. The only reason most beginners never hear it recommended as an algae solution is that a $3 plant that permanently solves the problem does not generate the repeat purchase revenue that a $9 bottle of algaecide does when it only temporarily suppresses the symptom. Now you know, here is the biology, and it is worth understanding because once you know it, you will look at algae completely differently for the rest of your time in this hobby. Every living organism in your aquarium is competing for the same pool of dissolved resources in the water. Nitrates and phosphates, which are the end products of fish waste being processed by your biological filter, are the primary nutrients that fuel algae growth. In a tank with no live plants, those nutrients accumulate in the water column between water changes with nothing to consume them. Algae is extraordinarily efficient at capturing dissolved nutrients and converting them into biomass. It is one of the oldest and most adaptable life forms on Earth. When you give it light and an unlimited food supply, it wins. Every chemical treatment you add kills the existing algae, but does nothing to remove the nutrients that the next generation will immediately feed on. You are treating the algae, but leaving the food source completely intact. Water Sprite works by a completely different mechanism. It does not kill algae, it starves it. As Water Sprite grows, and it grows extremely fast under good conditions, it pulls nitrates and phosphates directly out of the water column to fuel its own growth. It consumes the exact nutrients algae was using. It removes them from the equation. When a fast-growing plant is consuming nutrients faster than algae can, algae loses the resource competition and its growth rate collapses. You stop fighting algae and start outcompeting it. That is a fundamentally different approach, and a permanently more effective one. Now, before we go further, let me explain why Water Sprite specifically is the right plant for this job, and not just any aquarium plant. The reason is the growth rate.
Algae control through nutrient.
Competition only works when the plant grows fast enough to consume nutrients before algae can use them. Slow-growing plants like Anubias and Java fern, while beautiful and useful, do not consume nutrients fast enough to win that competition in most tanks. Water Sprite grows at a rate that experienced hobbyists describe as growing like a weed. Under moderate to good lighting, it can produce several inches of new growth per week. In a high bolo tank, it can fill significant surface area within 2 to 3 weeks of introduction. That growth rate is not incidental. It is the mechanism. Every centimeter of new Water Sprite growth represents nitrates and phosphates that have been permanently removed from the water column and locked into plant biomass. When you trim the plant and remove the trimmings from the tank, those nutrients leave the system entirely. You are physically exporting the fuel that algae was burning. No chemical treatment does this. Chemical treatments kill algae, but leave every dissolved nutrient exactly where it was. Here is exactly what to buy, where to find it, and what to look for. Water Sprite is sold under several names at pet stores and online retailers, including Water Fern, Indian Fern, and Indian Water Fern. All of these names refer to the same plant. The scientific name, Ceratopteros thoroides, will confirm it if you are ever uncertain. At chain pet stores, a small bunch typically costs between $2 and $5. Online retailers like B-Plant and specialty aquarium plant stores sell it in larger quantities for similar prices. 3 to 6 stems are sufficient to start in a tank up to 20 gallons. For larger tanks, start with 6 to 12 stems and allow the plant to establish and multiply naturally. What to look for when buying a healthy Water Sprite has bright green to light green leaves with no yellowing, no brown patches, no holes, and no tears. The stems should be firm enough to support the plant upright. Avoid plants with pale or translucent leaves, as these are already stressed and will take longer to establish. Here is how to introduce it and set it up, because there are 2 methods and both work, but the choice between them matters depending on your goals. The first method is floating. Simply place the Water Sprite stems on the water surface and leave them without planting them into the substrate at all. Floating Water Sprite grows faster than planted Water Sprite in most cases because it has direct access to the carbon dioxide in the air above the water surface, and it receives maximum light intensity. Floating plants also shade the water surface, which reduces the light reaching the lower levels of the tank and further disadvantages algae. For a tank that is actively fighting a severe algae outbreak, floating Water Sprite is your fastest tool. The second method is planting in substrate. Press the bottom 2 to 3 centimeters of stem gently into the substrate, leaving the majority of the plant above it. Planted Water Sprite will develop a root system that also absorbs nutrients from the substrate layer, giving it a dual nutrient uptake pathway. For a long-term planted tank, where you want Water Sprite as a permanent background or mid-ground plant, substrate planting is the better option. Many experienced hobbyists run both simultaneously, floating a portion for maximum nutrient absorption during the establishment phase, and planting the rest for long-term aquacaping. Here is the timeline of what to expect. During days 1 through 7 after introduction, you may notice very little visible growth, and some leaf melt or discoloration on the lower leaves is normal, as the plant transitions from the conditions of the nursery or store to your tank. Do not remove the plant during this adjustment period. The root system is establishing, and new growth is beginning at the growing tips. During weeks 2 and 3, you will see clearly accelerating growth from the tips of the stems and from small plantlets beginning to form on mature leaves. This is the point where nutrient uptake begins outpacing algae in most tanks. Between weeks 3 and 6, in a tank with adequate lighting and an established biological filter. You should see algae growth visibly slowing. Hair algae and soft green algae that were spreading will stop expanding and begin receding as their nutrient supply is being consistently consumed by the plant. By month 2, a healthy water sprite colony in a correctly stocked tank with appropriate feeding discipline will have established a biological equilibrium, where algae growth is permanently controlled at a level that causes no visual problems. This is not a temporary effect. As long as the plant is present and growing, the nutrient competition continues. Algae has no pathway to recover. Let me cover the common problems you will run into, because knowing these ahead of time saves you weeks of frustration. If the plant turns yellow after introduction, yellowing in the first 1 to 2 weeks is almost always a transition response. As the plant adapts to your water parameters, new growth emerging at the tips will be green and healthy. Remove only the severely damaged leaves and allow the healthy new growth to take over. If yellowing persists beyond 2 weeks, it indicates a nutrient deficiency, most commonly iron or nitrogen. A small dose of all-in-one liquid fertilizer addresses this without harming fish or invertebrates at recommended dosing levels. If the plant grows too fast and takes over the tank, this is the right problem to have because it means the plant is working. Simply trim back the plant every 1 to 2 weeks, removing the trimmed portions from the tank entirely. Those trimmings contain the nutrients they absorbed, so removing them physically exports those nutrients from your system. Trim, discard, or share the trimmings with other hobbyists. If you have shrimp or sensitive invertebrates in your tank, Water Sprite is completely safe for all shrimp species and invertebrates. Shrimp actively graze on the biofilm that develops on Water Sprite roots, and the dense root structure provides excellent cover for juvenile shrimp and fish fry. If your tank has low light, Water Sprite will survive in low light, but will grow significantly slower, which reduces its nutrient competition effectiveness. If you are running a very low light setup, floating the plant, rather than planting it, will maximize its access to light and maintain a faster growth rate. Here is the bonus tip that keeps algae from ever returning, even after you have resolved an active outbreak. Test your water weekly for nitrates and use the Water Sprite growth rate as your biological indicator. When the plant is growing vigorously and producing new leaves consistently, your nitrates are high enough to fuel it, which means they are also high enough to fuel algae if the plant were not present. When growth slows without a change in lighting or water parameters, it means your nutrient levels are dropping into a balanced range. The plant is telling you the system is reaching equilibrium. That feedback loop, a fast-growing plant whose growth rate reflects your tank's nutrient load, is more reliable than any test kit for understanding whether your system is balanced. Keep the plant growing. Keep removing the trimmings. Keep feeding lightly. The system maintains itself. The aquarium industry sells you a new bottle of treatment every time algae comes back because they have every incentive to keep you in that cycle. Water Sprite permanently breaks it for the price of a $3 plant. That knowledge has always been available in experienced hobbyist communities. It just never made it onto the shelf next to the algae because there is no margin in telling you to buy a $3 plant instead. Now you have it. If this video helped you, please give it a like and subscribe. The next video covers another cheap biological solution that replaces one of the most overpriced recurring expenses in the entire hobby.